Extensive weekly geeky blog. I'm your host and writer behind 99geek.ca, Andrew Geczy. As primarily a fiction writer, releasing chapters of my books in weekly chunks on my Patreon and episodes of TV shows when I'm not working nights, until recently when I was fired from my job. I want my brand 99%. I just lost my way completely. I want my brand 99% Geek to offer more content that might keep people coming back. I don't have much to offer besides my writing, but I'm passionate about pop culture and try to keep myself as up to date on politics, science, and art as I can. Being a huge TV nerd, I run down the best shows of the week, go over all the major news headlines for people who have maybe gotten too tired to follow regular news, breaking it down and explaining it for people who might feel unable to follow along. And before anything else, I spotlight something cool and geeky for the week. Remember, you can follow along by going to patreon.com/99geek. This is Geekly Weekly number 83 for the week of Friday, January 29th. And this week's highlight is a sitcom called iCarly. I was not going to make this my highlight. If you hear screaming children, I believe that's on my end. Or at least a screaming child. If you hear multiple screaming children, at least one of them might be yours. Um, Back to iCarly. I was not intending for this to be the highlight of the week, but I couldn't really come up with something better because I spent my entire week just watching iCarly. Um, Pretty much, um, I have become super addicted. I don't know how it happened. It all began one night I was setting my DVR for the next day, and it was just playing in the background. And I heard a voice, and I look up, and it's freaking Tuvok from Star Trek Voyager playing her principal. And I'm like, what, Tuvok? And that got me interested. So then I'm like watching to see what's up with Tuvok. And then my next question, I'm like, okay, where the hell is her parents? Like, does she even have any parents? I'm so confused. So then I looked it up, and actually, I think it was doing two episodes back to back on YTV or something. And so I watched both of those, and I was hooked. So then I looked up the pilot, and I started from the beginning. Explains everything. I just find the characters and the actors are charismatic, and the show is strangely fun and enjoyable. And more and more, the more I was watching it, the more it felt less and less of a guilty pleasure, more and more just like, this is actually fucking a good show. I wanted to scream it from the rooftops. So this is me screaming from the rooftops. iCarly, not going to be for everyone. I'm sure it's plenty cheesy. I don't know why I'm enjoying it as much as I am. It's a grown man, grown 32-year-old man. Um, what's really crazy is that um, they have announced that they're bringing it back. They have. They announced at the same time that I started getting into the show. Suddenly they're like, "We're bringing it back. Everyone's coming back to set. It's all happening again." I'm like, "Wow, that's weird and particularly timed." Literally, like the same week I got addicted to it. They like started like having set photos and shit. So there you go. Uh, you're welcome. They probably heard that I was getting into it, and they're like, "We got to make more episodes for him." Gonna watch it fast. I already finished season one, the entire first season. I'm gonna take it slower, I think, from here, but we'll see how it goes, if I can. Oops, I scrolled down too far there. Sure, let's just move on. So the Geekly Weekly TV ranking, starting at the bottom, there are 7 shows this week. The last show on the week I watched just before publishing this Geekly Weekly last night, and I really didn't want to watch it. I was not in the mood to watch yet another show at 3 in the morning. It was Resident Alien. It premiered on, well, in Canada, the Sci-Fi. I don't know what channel it would be. I guess Sci-Fi everywhere now. Yeah, the Sci-Fi channel. It was on the Sci-Fi channel, I believe. And it stars Alan Tudyk. And it was pilot. I thought I would give it a chance, even though it looked awful. I heard a lot of good reviews, and I was like, I hate it. I don't want to do this. I thought I would give up on it after the first 10 minutes. I wanted to after the first 15. But then near the end, a couple of the characters kind of start. My problem was that it was hard to connect with anyone because it was all just kind of silly. And that was what I was afraid it was going to be. But then a couple of the characters kind of grew on me a little. The nurse and the bartender, the two female characters in the show, basically, were interesting characters, and I gave it 2 stars. Resident Alien got 2 stars. for having a couple characters that I was able to connect to. And I was desperately trying because I read the good reviews and there was Alan Tudyk, and I was so tired. I'm just like, I don't know if I'm not enjoying this because I just don't want to watch this or if it's actually not good. So we'll maybe give another episode and see. Um, Only 2 stars, but might be worth watching if you're a fan of Alan Tudyk. You might want to check it out. He does a lot though. I would understand if you're Tudyk out. He's in like 12 to 20 things a year. I'm not even kidding. Like you have no idea how many different things he just pops up in Reddit. It's like, how do you have time for everything? And he's like voice acting on the side all the time. And I just learned of this new show, and not even a new show, a show from like, was it a while ago? It was from a while ago, and it was called Con Man. I'd never heard of it before, and it's just a show that happened, and he was in it for years. It's like, what? So yeah, Alan Tudyk, way too much going on with it in his life. Moving on from there to the number 6 on the list, Batwoman with 2.5 stars. Another episode of the show that was absolutely all right with no major flaws, but still had absolutely nothing compelling for me to say that it was worth watching. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. I can't give you a reason to care. Um, there are characters and they do things. I care about Mary, I guess. I like Mary and I like Alice. Um, and I do feel like Alice is taking a lot of massaging from the writers to keep relevant now that her sister isn't Batwoman anymore. Um, and the whole show is just kind of like spinning its wheels, and I'm just barely along for the ride. But cool, we're still on with Batwoman. It's not doing anything wrong. It's just whatever. I think it was more enjoyable than Resident Alien. You know what was the biggest problem with Resident Alien is that for comedy, I guess it wasn't that funny, and also kind of disturbing. I don't know. We'll see. I was super tired. We'll see what the next week's episode looks like. Moving on from there, after Batwoman, we're on to the Goldbergs with 3 stars. It was a decent, all right episode of the Goldbergs. I found it a little boring, but there's certainly been more by the numbers, following the formula sort of episodes of the Goldbergs than this one. I appreciated the scene with Paul Scheer and Beverly Goldberg when they were arguing law back and forth at each other, but neither of them knew what the hell they were talking about. So they were both just yelling random law terms at each other. Especially the part where they started, where Beverly put on a gavel and just starts like banging her gavel down, and the judge is like, "What are you doing? I'm the one with the gavel." And then Sheer is just like, "I also have a hammer if it pleases the court." And she's like, "Why would that please the court?" It was a funny episode. Uh, weird, but funny. I guess it wasn't that funny. It was just a funny moment. But as the guy who likes Family Guy, wouldn't you get weird like that? I appreciate it. So yeah, that's why it got higher than Batwoman. Otherwise, it wouldn't have if it wasn't weird. Maybe if Batwoman was more weird, it would have gotten higher than the Goldbergs, and it could have written that on a plaque and put it over its door. Number 4 on the list, American Gods, 3.5 stars. Was probably the best episode this season, which isn't saying much because this show used to be amazing and now it's not. I appreciated that Emily Browning was back. She is, as always, my favorite part of the show. I do feel it's weird that she's dead again, but this time the afterlife is different. It's no longer what it was before, when I thought they established it pretty well before. The show confuses the shit out of me. Every scene is just totally different, trying to do totally different things, and it's still it's holding me together. Thank God they brought Emily Browning back. Let's just put it that way. I also kind of enjoy the chemistry between Shadow and his landlord. Um, if you're into that sort of thing. Character chemistry between characters. I'm sorry, I'm just tired. I didn't get much sleep. I was up to like 5 a.m. Moving on from there, The Stand at 3.5 stars. Oh yeah, we're in the top 3. I'm supposed to do the bum, ba-da-da-da-dun, dun, dun, dun. I don't know why I said I'm supposed to do that. And the only one holding me to something like that would be me. The Stand with 3.5 stars. Still not that great of an episode. I guess it just was a boring week, or maybe I was just in a funk. that could too also quite be possible. Um, it was a fine episode of a show that's not been great. Ezra Miller was super annoying in the beginning. And those noises he was making, it was just like, stop, please. I wanted to mute them, the speakers. The stuff with Nadine and Flag was creepy and off-putting. The stuff in the desert was something. I read some people pointing out that in the 1994 miniseries, it's pretty kind of fucked up too. So there you go. Which one did it better? I don't know. I guess this one. Ooh, especially that part at the end where you see her pregnant. And, oh, that was fun. That scene was fun. Um, if nothing, if anything, the show had me looking forward to the finale because if nothing else, it should be a blast. That's what I wrote. Is that some kind of pun to what should happen in the finale? I'm not saying anything, but the pieces seem to be in place. The show really wanted to get to this sort of place and it made it, so congratulations. Um, Too bad you skipped a lot of the good stuff along the way, a lot of the stuff that would have made the show worth watching. Moving on from there to WandaVision with 4.5 stars. For the most part, I enjoyed the episode. Probably the best out of the three so far. I haven't watched the one that just aired. I'll probably watch it as soon as we finish this, and it'll be fantastic. I'll be so excited. But I released this last night before it came out, or maybe as it came out. I think as I was going to bed, I could have watched it, but I was so tired by that point. You have no idea. You have no idea. Um, I did find that the third episode dragged a little with its attempts at humor. I mean, it was no iCarly or anything. Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't hang me. Um, don't take away my street cred. I'm not gonna compare the two. My geek cred. I'm sorry, street cred. I can tell you my street cred is in the negatives. I loved everything with Geraldine. The part at the end where she gets ejected was fun. Um, that's probably the thing I enjoy most about the episodes are the meta aspects, the non sitcom aspects. The main story, I guess, is what I enjoy most about it. And then the sitcom stuff is fine. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's 2 stars or anything. I'm just saying that it could have been funnier. I mean, they could have made the best sitcom ever. You know, it's Marvel, but instead it just seems like a lame sort of imitation. Um, Moving on to the number one TV show of the week this week, Euphoria released their second. I didn't even realize that was this week. It feels like it was forever ago. But they released their second. It was supposed to be like a holiday special thing. The first one, I think, was Christmas, and this one was supposed to be New Year's, but it came out a little late. Um, it follows Jules, and it shows like her side of the story throughout all of season one, just as the last special was entirely. It was like a single conversation between um Zendaya and Strand from Fear the Walking Dead. Um, Zendaya playing herself and Strand playing Strand from Fear the. No, kidding. That would be amazing though. Did you see my movie Spider-Man? You don't understand. You don't understand. I've been running from zombies for so long. um, But so Jules in this one was in like a therapy session with a therapist, and the entire hour-long episode took place within just this therapy session. There was like no, there were cutaways to like, thoughts in her head or like her remembering something, but I feel like there weren't specific time jumps where like we got just almost the entire hour session of just her and this person and just the awkward silences and everything. It was just like the acting that was on display on this show was beyond the pale, and is a whole nother league to everything else we've been talking about. You know, like it's you could put it up against most movies, and it would give those movies a run for their money. If it was a movie itself, there would be no doubt that it would win the Oscar, because damn, the performances on display just blew me away. It's the hour goes by like that. Imagine an hour long conversation that you're just watching and you just like and the time flies. Like this show is just it's art, absolute art. I can't even rate it. I mean, obviously it gets the max rating, but it's hard to do much of anything. I didn't even like. I say here that it's the secret sauce. It's this beautifully crafted art. It's enrapturing, tragic. I'm speechless. I mean, it's all true. You can't rate it. You can't critique it. You can only hold on and let it take your heart for a ride. 100%. If you're not watching Euphoria, then you must hate quality television. You must hate peak TV, and just love formulaic bullshit. You must be exactly like my parents watching Prodigal Son or whatever. I don't even know if that's a bad show. I honestly don't. I didn't watch it. They told me to watch it, and I'm just like, isn't that the show that's exactly like The Blacklist? Um, Moving on from there, I changed the order of these things, of the different segments. I decided to structure this so we're doing entertainment first. As you know, we had the highlight, now we're then the Geekly Weekly TV rankings, and now we're doing the Geekly predictions. If you're wondering what to look forward to next week, there wasn't a whole lot interesting. No interesting games coming out besides Control, is getting an Ultimate Edition releasing on PS5 and Series X, I guess. I've never played Control, but I've heard good things. I believe it's by the creators of Max Payne, Remedy Entertainment. And there's a lot of like cool, weird, mind-bending stuff on display in that game. It's supposed to be like game of the year by like a lot of people, so. And it's free, I believe, on the PS5 this month, so you might want to check that out. Control again is the game, but that's number three on the list. There were two other things. They look like movies. I think they were movies. One was called The Little Things on HBO Max. This is a video thing, so I can just click it. Maybe mute it so we don't get content warning. This was a movie with Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Jared Leto, but what can you do, right? Uh, and it's sort of like a noir detective-y sort of thing, I guess. Where I think what it is someone's dead and they think Jared Leto did it, but they're trying to get proof. And at first he doesn't know, and then he does know, and then it's like, did he do it? I don't know. But it looked interesting, especially in a week where it didn't seem like there was going to be a whole lot going on. It kind of this shown out as looking quality, and it's just a movie. So I mean, it's on again. That's HBO Max, and I think it's one of those movies that would have been in theaters if it could, but it can't. So instead, it's here on HBO Max. The next one, The Dig, that's coming out on Netflix on Friday as well. Both these are coming out on Friday. This one looks interesting. It's like a historical thing back during World War II, about archaeologists who try to get people excited about a dig, and they're all like, "There's a war going on. People are dying. The Nazis." And they're like, "Yeah, but this dig though." I'm not gonna explain anymore. That's the whole movie. They're like, "This thing though." Nazis, but this thing. Yeah, that was the Geekly predictions, and there was Control. So hope maybe one of those will strike your fancy. But this dig though. Moving on from there, the Geekly Weekly news headlines. This is the second act of our three-act play. The second act is news, I guess. Reality. Welcome to reality. Um, Starting at the top, she exposed sexual abuse in a Catholic kids camp. Now she's facing a prison sentence. Welcome to reality. Water break. Do 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 do. Water break. This is a story on Vice.com by Simeon Teagle. The work of Peruvian journalist Peo Ugaz has made her the target of a string of legal actions. This is from January 22nd, 2021, and they did the date the shitty way. That sucks, and they're dumb, but we don't need to worry about that right now. When reporters at the Boston Globe exposed child sex abuse within the Catholic Church, their investigative work was so celebrated that Hollywood made a film spotlight about it. Now, after carrying out a similar crusading probe into pedophilia in a Catholic lay organization in South America, Peruvian journalist Peo Ugaz is facing jail time and a hefty damages bill. For years, Ugaz, 45, has been researching Sodalicio de Vida Cristiana, a Catholic boot camp for children from elite families. Elite families are sending their children to Catholic boot camp. You would think they would be able to give their children better lives than that. She began by contributing to the 2015 Spanish language book Half Monks, Half Soldiers by Pedro Salinas, which revealed a pattern of abuse at Sodalicio, which Salinas had attended as a teen. She is now investigating its financing and is due to publish a book on that subject later this year. But the pair's award-winning work has ruffled feathers and made Ugaz, in particular, the target of a string of lawsuits from Sodalicio members and conservative activists. Excuse me. Because, of course, when you go up against, when you try to attack actual pedophiles, the conservatives come out against you. But somehow Q thinks that they're the good guys. Some attacking her for defamation and some seeking to have her charged with corruption. The attacks on her integrity have come from Peru's tabloid press, as well as an obscure conservative Catholic website, La Abija. It claims to want to elevate the national debate, yet has published dozens of articles attacking Ugaz in highly personal terms, with a series of outlandish and evidence-free claims, while also naming her children's school and speculating about how she could afford it. The stories include one titled Paola Ugaz, the face of defamation and lies, accusing her of being a compulsive liar, another alleging she was covering up for organized crime, and a third titled The Arab Paola Ugaz, that alleges she associated with the Palestinian independence movement and the family of Nobel laureate novelist Mario Vargas Llosa to traffic in uranium and plutonium. Wow, she did all of that? She's a compulsive liar, but also works with organized crime and works with the Palestinian independent movement and family of Nobel laureate novelist Mario Vargas Llosa to traffic uranium and plutonium. It's a lot for one person to be involved with, and wrote a book about making up child pedophilia. She really gets around. By now, after giving TV and radio interviews in which Ugaz responded by describing La Abeja and its editor Luciano de Verado as defamatory, no kidding, a statement of the obvious, you might think, she is in the dock herself thanks to a private prosecution for defamation brought by Verado. The case highlights the resistance and conservative bastions of Latin America's Catholic establishment to acknowledging its numerous child abuse scandals, as well as what free speech campaigners describe as Peru's antiquated legal code. I mean, they can arrest somebody for defamation. Like, so that's like, that would be like Amber Heard getting arrested because Johnny Depp was like, she's lying about that shit she said. And they're like, all right, guess we're just gonna have to arrest Amber Heard until we figure this out. That's pretty fucked. Which establishes defamation as a criminal rather than civil matter. Yeah, no shit. That's really fucked up. Good luck to her. The story goes on, and you can read more about it by going to patreon.com/geek or just find it at vice.com. You don't even have to use me as a middleman. Moving on from there to Israeli warplanes strike targets in central Syria. This is a story from January 22nd, 2021 by the Associated Press. Out of Beirut. Israeli warplanes fired several missiles in central Syria early Friday. These are things that, like, I didn't hear anything about this. Did you hear anything about this? Like, people firing missiles against other people? This is not serious deal. Double negatives, that's tricky. Without giving word on casualties, state news agency SANA quoted an unnamed military official as saying the attack took place shortly before dawn when Israeli warplanes flew over neighboring Lebanon. Israel has launched hundreds of strikes against Iran-linked military targets, but also they're apparently amazing with vaccines, is what I heard this week, which is amazing that they can do both those things at once. Who knows? Maybe that other woman really is guilty of all that shit they were accusing her of. Multitasking. Some people are just really good at it. Yeah, Israel launched hundreds of strikes against Iran-linked military targets in Syria over the years, but rarely acknowledged or discussed such operations. The Syrian military official said that the attack was aimed at several targets in and near the central province of Hama. It added that Syrian air defense shot down most of the missiles. Oh, that's good. Must be fucked that they just have to constantly be on guard like that. Imagine that was America, and there was just people constantly firing missiles at America, and it's like, don't worry, we shot most of them down. Only a couple of them hit their targets. It was Israel's first strike on Syria since President Joe Biden took office, so for the past week. Tension has been high in the Middle East over the past weeks, as many had feared retaliation for U.S. killing of Iran's Revolutionary Guard commander Qasem Soleimani last year. Oh, we're dropping a lot of frames here, aren't we? Which thankfully won't affect my recording, but will affect other things. Hopefully that'll fix it. Sorry. I had my VPN up. Moving on from there. Where were we? On January 13th, Israeli warplanes carried out intense airstrikes in eastern Syria, apparently targeting positions and arms depots of Iran-backed forces. At least 57 fighters were killed and dozens were wounded, according to a Syrian opposition war monitoring group. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, an opposition war monitor that tracks Syria's war, said it recorded 39 Israeli strikes inside Syria in 2020 that hit 135 targets. 39 strikes hit 135 targets, including military posts, warehouses, or vehicles. So I guess one strike can hit like 10 vehicles or something. Israel views Iranian entrenchment on its northern frontier as a red line and has repeatedly struck Iran-linked facilities and weapons convoy depots for Lebanon's militant Hezbollah group, destined for Lebanon's militant Hezbollah group. So are they passing through Syria to Iran? Are Iran and Syria allies? The strikes also come amid intensifying low-altitude Israeli warplane missions in Lebanese skies that have caused jitters among residents. I mean, the Middle East is always a shit show and clearly continues to be so. And it's such a shit show all the time that I feel like people don't even cover that shit much anymore. Moving on from there, did Trump Twitter ban result in a 73% drop in misinformation? This could be interesting. This is a story on screenrant.com. I already read the headline. It is a story by Nick Woodward from January 22nd, 2021. A study suggests online misinformation dropped 73% in the week following the ban of President Trump from several different social media sites. A new study suggests that the spread of misinformation regarding fraud in the 2020 US presidential election dropped by 73% in the week following Donald Trump's ban from Twitter on January 8th. Trump was banned after he repeatedly violated the social media platform's rules and guidelines. The question is, was Trump's exile the main reason for the massive drop in falsehoods online? Trump's ban followed the January 6th Capitol Hill riot, with Twitter citing its glorification of violence policy as justification for its permanent suspension of the then commander-in-chief. Along with the Twitter ban, Trump has also been banned from several other popular social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and others. Trump might have been able to move to the controversial platform Parler, but it went offline itself after Amazon Web Services suspended. Was there any evidence that he was planning to do that? Since Trump was essentially erased from the internet, fantastic, the Washington Post has reported on the findings of research firm Signal Labs, which claims that conversations concerning election fraud dropped from 2.5 million mentions to 688,000 mentions over a week's time. Signal also reportedly found that mentions of the hashtag Fight for Trump dropped 95%, as did other hashtags like Hold the Line and the term March for Trump. While there is surely a correlation between these findings and the Trump ban, however, The former president's ban from social media likely isn't the only reason that misinformation has dropped so significantly. While it may be so easy to point to Trump's ban as a cause for the steady decline in misinformation, it's also likely not that simple. For one, Trump's account wasn't the only one to be banned. According to the Washington Post, Twitter banned more than 70,000 accounts that were affiliated with QAnon, with other platforms following suit in what amounted to a huge purge of accounts violating community guidelines and standards. Good point. The aftermath of the January 6th riot, including the eventual certification of the presidential election, also may have contributed to the decrease in the spread of falsehoods online. Ultimately, though, the study could be seen as too small of a sample size to fully understand the impact of banning Trump from various social media platforms. A long-term examination of misinformation across social media will most likely provide a better picture of the kind of role that Trump played online. It's not a question of whether or not Trump contributed to the spread of falsehoods. Rather, it's a question of how much his presence online caused. A week's worth of statistics, while notable, doesn't tell the complete story. So basically, there's been a 33% drop in misinformation, is what we could have taken from that. Moving on from there, Sacha Baron Cohen says Borat 2 is his last undercover movie. So if you enjoyed Borat 2, cool, it's never going to happen again. Massive disguise and always controversial Sacha Baron Cohen has stated that Borat's is a subsequent movie film, blah, 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 is his last undercover film. It's been roughly 25 years since Cohen first began to transform into the clueless Kazakhstani reporter, originally known as Alexei Krikler. In time, Borat Sagdiev, so I guess he was Alexei Krikler on his show? Because he had a show, right? Called Ali G. I never watched it. I'm sorry. I'm not the hugest Cohen fan. I think he's fine. In addition to his two Borat films, Cohen has consistently managed to pull off some truly astounding feats while in character, often at the expense of those who wanted nothing to do with him in the first place. Cohen has literally been responsible for the resignation of a Georgia lawmaker, faced countless lawsuits for duping seemingly regular people into sharing awful and backward opinions, and of course placed many politicians in some truly compromising situations. Of course, they're talking about Rudy Giuliani. All in all, the secrecy that Cohen employs while in character in making films like Borat, Bruno, and The Dictator has arguably been his greatest weapon. Each film made in this way requires immense preparation and planning, regardless of how off the cuff the final product may appear to be. However, it's bad news for fans who are hoping for more undercover films from Cohen in the future. During a recent interview with CBS this morning, Cohen was asked if he would consider doing another undercover film. His response was quick and to the point, leaving the impression that he was officially made up his mind on the matter. No, I can't do it again. I was lucky to make it out of this one fully intact, so no. Jeez, that's rough. So sad. Chapter clips. That's rough. By this point in his career, Cohen is instantly recognizable globally, and in some cases, it could be argued that he's even more recognizable as the alter egos he utilizes in his films. And while it's understandably bad news for Cohen fans that he's decided it's time to move on to other things, there's no denying that his talent and comedic skills won't go to waste. Roles in films like Sweeney Todd, Les Miserables, and most recently Trial of Chicago 7 have all proved excellent opportunities for Cohen to showcase his abilities beyond the likes of Brad and Bruno. He was fine in Les Miserables. Yeah, at 49, there's still plenty of time for Cohen to push himself into new territories and break ground that few could have expected. It's also worth noting that Cohen has yet to branch out into feature film direction. What was Les Mis then? I'm confused by what you're saying there. Sometimes this site confuses me. We're just gonna move on. Moving on to Schumer says that Trump impeachment trial to begin week of February 8th. Tell me more, when does it begin? This is a story by Mary Claire Jelinek and Lisa Mascaro of the Associated Press from January 23rd, 2021. From Washington. Opening arguments in the Senate impeachment trial for Donald Trump over the Capitol riot will begin the week of February 8th, the first time a former president will face such charges after leaving office. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced his schedule Friday evening after reaching an agreement with Republicans who had pushed for a delay to give Trump a chance to organize his legal team and prepare a defense on the sole charge of incitement of insurrection. The February start date also allows the Senate more time to confirm President Joe Biden's cabinet nominations and consider his proposed 1.9 trillion COVID relief package. Oh, thank God, because a lot of people are very upset about that. I've been it was like he was in office 3 days, and there were people on Twitter that were just like, "See, Democrats are shit. They're shit. We haven't gotten this COVID thing that they insisted we were going to get. They're shit. They're exactly as bad as Republicans. See?" And it's like, man, A, calm down. B, maybe give them more than 3 days. See, here's all these other things that they did do that they promised that like they haven't just been sitting on their asses doing nothing. These amazing things they've done, reversing Trump's shit. And it's like, yeah, but they didn't do this one fucking thing that I want. Like, relax. I get it. Everyone's hurting right now. I understand why you're upset. I went through a hard time when I had to wait months for the COVID relief that I needed. So I get it. I get it. But it's not like Republicans will be better. We all want to put this awful chapter in our nation's history behind us, says Schumer about the deadly January 6th Capitol siege by a mob of pro-Trump supporters. But healing and unity will only come if there is truth and accountability. I agree 100%. And that is what this trial will provide. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will send the article of impeachment late Monday, with senators sworn in as jurors Tuesday, but opening arguments will move to February. Trump's impeachment trial would be the first of a U.S. president no longer in office, an undertaking that his Senate Republican allies argue is pointless and potentially even unconstitutional. Bullshit. Democrats say they have to hold Trump to account even as they pursue Biden's legislative priorities because of the gravity of what took place, a violent attack on the U.S. Congress aimed at overturning an election. I don't think they should keep it just on that. I think they should show everything because people keep forgetting shit. People keep focusing on this one thing and being like, yeah, but it's just this one thing, so whatever. And it's like, no, it's thousands of things. You can't just keep saying that for everything. Like, they add up. You can't just pretend like they don't add. You can't keep taking everything by itself. For fuck's sake. Excuse my French. This article goes on and on and on. You know what? Let's hear what people have to say about this because I think some of this is going to be very fascinating. Where were we? Here. If Trump is convicted, the Senate could vote to bar him from holding office ever again, potentially upending his chances for a political comeback. The urgency for Democrats to hold Trump responsible was complicated by the need to put Biden's government in place and start quick work on his coronavirus aid package. The more time we have to get up and running, the better, Biden said Friday in brief comments to reporters. Republicans were eager to delay the trial, putting distance between the shocking events of the siege and the votes that will test their loyalty to the former president who still commands voters' attentions. Because again, people have no memory. So even this one thing they can't remember past like a couple days when it happened, they were all like, this is horrible. My life was in danger. This cannot be allowed to happen. And then 3 days later, they're like, can we just put it behind us? Like, whatever. It's no big deal. People are fucking crazy. Negotiations between Schumer and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell were complicated as the two are also in talks over a power sharing agreement for the Senate, which is split 50-50, but in Democratic control because Vice President Kamala Harris serves as a tie-breaking vote. Then why do you have to power share with him? McConnell had proposed delaying the start and welcomed the agreement. At least they can focus on that COVID shit, which a lot of people are concerned about. Republicans set out to ensure the Senate's next steps will respect former President Trump's rights in due process, institution of the Senate, and the office of the presidency, said McConnell spokesman Doug Andre. That goal has been achieved. Pelosi said Friday the 9 House impeachment managers and prosecutors are ready to begin to make their case against Trump. Trump's team will have had the same amount of time since the House impeachment vote to prepare, Pelosi said. Democrats say they can move quickly through the trial, potentially with no witnesses, because lawmakers experienced insurrection firsthand. Yeah, no shit. One of the managers, California, yeah, but you should still have, like, video evidence of shit. Like, again, this goes back to do it all. Put it all out on fucking Front Street because people keep forgetting that he's done all these horrible things. It's not just one fucking thing. This was an attack on our capital by a violent mob. Liu said in an interview with the Associated Press, was an attack on our nation instigated by our commander-in-chief. We have to address that and make sure it never happens again. Trump, who told his supporters to fight like hell just before they invaded the Capitol 2 weeks ago and interrupted the electoral vote count, is still assembling his legal team. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Friday deferred to Congress on timing for the trial and would not say whether Biden thinks Trump should be convicted. But she said lawmakers can simultaneously discuss and have hearings on Biden's coronavirus relief package. We don't think it can be delayed or it can wait, so they're going to have to find a path forward. Psaki said about the virus aid. He's confident they can do that. Democrats would need the support of at least 17 Republicans to convict Trump, a high bar. While most Republicans said, why? They have majority. Why do they need 17 Republicans? I don't understand. While most Republican senators condemned Trump's actions that day, far fewer appear to be ready to convict. A handful of Senate Republicans have indicated they are open but not committed to conviction, but most have come to Trump's defense as it relates to impeachment, saying that they believe a trial will be divisive and questioning the legality of trying a president after he has left office. Honestly, the more I'm reading this, the more I feel like Democrats are going to fucking drop the ball. It should have been about more than just the attack on the Capitol, in my opinion. It should have been about everything. It should have been about the disappropriate response between that and what happened in the summer. It should be about how Trump, apparently there's talks about how people warned the Capitol Police, that they warned, the FBI gave them warnings. They got warnings from other groups, and apparently they made calls to have like the National Guard or whatever, people come in, other police from other districts be sent in to give them reinforcements before it all happened, because they had these warnings, and apparently they were blocked on some level by the Trump administration. That should be put front and center as well, on top of everything else. Like, these are all really serious offenses. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, a close Trump ally who has been helping him find lawyers, said Friday there is a very compelling constitutional case on whether Trump can be impeached after his term, an assertion Democrats reject, saying there is ample legal precedent. Graham also suggested Republicans will argue Trump's words on January 6th were not legally incitement. On the grounds, they'll be able to mount a defense, so their main thing is to give him a chance to prepare and run the trial orderly. And hopefully the Senate will reject the idea of pursuing presidents after they leave office, Graham said. Fuck this. People should be held accountable. Why is it always we have to hold the poor and we have to hold the minorities to be accountable for their shit? But then when it comes to rich people, when it comes to white people, suddenly it's, oh no, we gotta move on, unity. We can't attack the white people. Like, it's driving me fucking mental. These people did crimes. They should stand account. Not just Trump, but everyone who's fucking supporting him right now should lose their jobs, in my opinion, because they're literally fucking supporting a criminal. Diplomats contact Canadian held for over 2 years in China. This is kind of a horror story from what I was reading. This is a story by the Associated Press, posted January 23rd, 2021. Canadian officials have met online with former diplomat Michael Kovrig, who has been held in China for more than 2 years in a case related to an executive of Chinese telecom giant Huawei. And as we all know, being held prisoner in China is like awful. They do not have very good conditions in their jails. They don't treat the prisoners very well, so that's scary. Who is this person? Kovrig and his businessman Michael Spavor have been confined since December 10th, 2018, just days after Canada detained Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou, who is also the daughter of the founder of the Chinese telecommunications equipment giant. But see, I've heard that the difference is when we detained the executive, they mean like we put him under house arrest, whereas China literally took these people to prison. These random people who didn't even do anything is what I've heard, but let's keep reading and find out for sure. The Canadian government remains deeply concerned by the arbitrary detention by Chinese authorities of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor since December 2018 and continues to call for their immediate release, the ministry said. And again, this is another thing that just fucking happens and nobody covers ever. The fact that China has just taken two of our people, and it's just like, yeah, you've got our person, we've got your people, what you gonna do about it? Like, this is war. We're talking about, like, this should be war. But both sides are too scared. Obviously, I don't want to see Canada go to war with China. Um, like, what the fuck is happening here? China says the pair are being held on suspicion of endangering national security, but has also drawn clear links between their detention and the case against Meng, who is fighting deportation to the U.S., where she faces fraud charges. Beijing says the detention of Meng, who is under house arrest at a mansion she owns in Vancouver. She's at house arrest in a mansion, is politically motivated and has demanded her immediate and unconditional release. Chinese process, and so because of this, because the U.S. Is trying to charge her with fraud, and Canada, instead of shipping her to the U.S. on the fraud extradition, they are holding her in place instead. So we're protecting her from these fraud charges somewhat by holding her in place under house arrest. And China was like, fuck you guys. We're going to take two of your guys because we can. And Canada's like, what the fuck? And China's like, what you going to do about it? And that's been happening since 2018. Chinese prosecutors announced last year that Kovrig had been charged. I already read this. No, I didn't. I don't think I did. Chinese prosecutors announced last year that Kovrig has been charged on suspicion of spying for state secrets and intelligence, and Spavor on suspicion of spying for a foreign entity and illegally providing state secrets. It's not publicly known where they are being held or under what conditions, but it's probably not good. Canadian diplomats had been denied all access to the two men from January to October because of coronavirus precautions cited by the Chinese side. Meng's arrest severely damaged relations between Canada and China, which has sentenced two other Canadians to death. The fuck? And suspended imports of Canadian canola. How are we not at war with them? The U.S. accuses Meng, the chief financial officer of Huawei Technologies, of using a Hong Kong shell company. I mean, you can't go to war with someone that's bigger than you. You can, but it's like committing suicide. Not to mention, we owe them a shit ton of money, and on and on and on. Insane. Absolutely insane. Moving on from there, Xbox Live Gold price increase reversed following outcry. This too is a very important story. It's just so important. Sorry. This is a story by ScreenRant.com by Alex Santamaria. After hearing less than 24 hours of feedback, Microsoft has reversed course on its price hike for Xbox Live Gold and made free-to-play games actually free-to-play on Xbox consoles. Earlier in the day, Microsoft revealed its plan to double the cost of its online service, which includes access to online multiplayer, the games with Gold library, and discounts on the online store. This was met with both outrage and cynicism, with most critics pointing out that it felt like price manipulation designed to point consumers towards Xbox Game Pass Ultimate rather than the older subscription. Game Pass has been what Microsoft has built the Xbox branding around for the past several years. Players can access the library of games on PC and mobile phones via the cloud, well, as long as it's not an iPhone. In addition to various Xbox consoles, and the company is vowed to release every first-party title via subscription going forward, even on PC, which is cool. Like, you can get the Age of Empires games on PC if you have the same Game Pass subscription. Game Pass has also attracted a growing number of prominent indie games to debut on the service, which has been well received and popular amongst the gaming populace. Game Pass Ultimate is an all-in-one subscription that includes access to Gold, and Gold subscribers have been able to upgrade their service for very little money since Ultimate's introduction. In an update to the post from this morning, Xbox backtracked on the outlined pricing changes, which would have made Gold cost $60 for 6 months of service rather than a year for that same amount of money affords now. The company also listened to common criticism of the service that rose back up today due to the price hike, that being that Xbox has traditionally required a gold subscription even when playing free games online. This has been set in stone since the service's inception, and the requirement once even stretched to video streaming services like Netflix. As of today, that's all changing as well. In an updated post, the Xbox seems to that it's lifting the free-to-play restriction in order to bring the service more in line with how we see the player at the center of the experience. And this is another experience, another example of Xbox and Microsoft listening to its fan base as opposed to Sony, who just don't give a shit and love to milk their fans for as much money as they absolutely can. I've been saying this since the PS3. I was a huge Sony fan going into the PS3 era generation, and they completely changed my mind on that. And I've been screaming it from the rooftops ever since, and nobody's ever listened to me. PlayStation's still been more successful for some reason, despite PlayStation just being complete assholes for a decade now. Easy. Anyway, and I mean, I still have a PlayStation because they have all these exclusives, so what can you do? But Xbox seems to be trying to change that. We'll see how they do. This will bring Xbox Live in line with every other online service on console and PC, which has never charged for any online multiplayer except for the one time Microsoft tried its hand at it. What are you talking about? PlayStation charges for its multiplayer now. But again, that's another example of why I hate Screen Rant. And this is why I don't usually use them as a source. I used to have like a while ago, they were part of my our L tits RSS feed, and then I keep getting rid of them because they suck, and then I keep putting them back because then I realize I'm not getting my entertainment news, and every once in a while they get these good scoops. For some reason they get scoops that I won't catch in other places, where it's like fuck, and sometimes it's because they're wrong. Like sometimes they'll just do rumors that are obviously fake. I'm like, that's just wrong. But sometimes they get scoops that are right that other people just maybe don't cover because they don't expect to be right or something. So it's really frustrating. I don't like Screen Rant. I actually applied. They were looking for jobs, and I saw a posting on a job site, and I applied, and they responded with, "Nah, you're not our thing. Sorry." And meanwhile, and in the meantime, I found like 3 articles since they sent me that email that are just like blatantly wrong. There was one that was like just listing the Pokemon generations, and even then they couldn't even name the fucking Pokemon games correctly. And it's like, well, I'm so glad you have all these wonderful people and these fit your level of quality bar higher than me, apparently. Whatever words I said just weren't even proper English, so apparently they were right. Next story. Patrick Stewart receives COVID-19 vaccine prior to Picard season 2. This is a story by Roxy Pell. This was 5 days ago. But don't even give a date, just say 5 days ago. On screenrant.com, and we don't even really need to read it, but the important thing, ooh, there's a video. He has a tweet. How do we say thank you to the health workers and scientists for their sacrifice and service? Receive the vaccine as soon as one can to lessen their load and keep wearing a mask to protect fellow citizens. In my 80th year, I am grateful and hopeful for better days ahead. Go, Patrick Stewart. 20 more years at least, Patrick Stewart.
Thank you.
He did it in the car.
Thank you so much. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, hold that there. Hold that, hang out here for a second, and then you'll be good to go.
Thank you.
Okay. And that's
almost 4 hours from Cancun.
But well worth it.
oh yes.
Oh, yes. That's amazing. Is he driving? I can't tell. That is amazing. Beautiful. I'm sorry. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not crying, you're crying. All right, moving on from there. QAnon thinks Trump will become president again on March 4th. This is a story on Vice.com. So they're back to their regular delusions then. They got confused for a while, but they're feeling better. This old lady here is feeling much better. This is a story by David Gilbert on the January 25th, 2021. I wanted to be like the 25th month of the first day. But, anyway, Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 19th president of the United States on March 4th, 2021. In case you didn't get the memo, it's happening. Get ready for it. This is the latest conspiracy that QAnon followers have embraced in the wake of President Joe Biden's inauguration last week, and extremist experts are worried that it highlights the way QAnon adherents are beginning to merge their beliefs about the world being run by an elite cabal of cannibalistic Satanist pedophiles with even more extreme ideologies. The latest claims being made by QAnon supporters echo those of the sovereign citizen movement, a group of people who believe that they are not governed by the same laws as everyone else. What? That belief has led to violent confrontations with law enforcement, have viewed them among the top domestic extremist threats facing the country. I believe I clicked on this. I'm like, what are you talking about? It was... Nope. Maybe I just read it somewhere else in this article. There was some crossover between QAnon and the sovereign citizen movement before, but I've seen sovereign citizen ideas about the United States being a corporation become more popular within QAnon and beyond in January. Travis View, a conspiracy theory researcher, told Vice News. It's concerning because it means QAnon is borrowing ideas from more established extremism movements. Sovereign citizens believe that a law enacted in 1871, this is probably what I was thinking about, secretly turned the U.S. citizen into... Sovereign citizens believe that a law enacted in 1871 secretly turned the U.S. into a corporation and did away with the American government of the Founding Fathers. The group also believes that President Franklin D. Roosevelt sold U.S. citizens out in 1933 when he ended the gold standard and replaced it by offering citizens as collateral to a group of shadowy foreign investors. That's why people keep disappearing and dying. Death isn't actually a thing. It's just people disappear and get thrown off to these shadowy investors. Sovereigns use indecipherable legal filings based on arcane text to separate themselves from legal entities the government has supposedly created in their name in order to sell to investors. What does that mean? Who the fuck knows? Okay. When that doesn't work, followers of the sovereign citizen movement have reacted violently. In May 2010, for example, a father-son team of sovereigns murdered 2 police officers with an assault rifle when they were pulled over on the interstate while traveling through Arkansas. Jesus Christ. Now QAnon followers have latched onto the theory and adapted it to suit their needs. Jesus Christ. Over the weekend, QAnon groups on Gab and Telegram, where most QAnon supporters have found a home since they were kicked off Twitter and Parler, was deplatformed. Commenters have been sharing documents describing the 1871 Act, claiming it proves that Trump will be sworn in on March 7th. This one thing's bad legal takes.
So I've always kind of wanted to know where the phrase "over till the fat lady sings" came from. So I did a little bit of research. Turns out it's a colloquialism or proverb, which means don't presume to know what happens until it happens. Well, today Joe Biden was inaugurated as the 46th President of the United States of America. For this Constitution. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence was created and signed. In 1788, the Constitution was ratified. In 1789, the Bill of Rights was created as well, which is the first 10 or so articles in the Constitution. Now, in this original document, the power was given to we the people. Somewhere along the line, the power was sold from we the people to the feds, the federal government.
To the feds?
Well, President Trump signed the Insurrection Act. That gives us, we the people, the power again. So, what does that mean? It means that in March, President Trump is going to be the 19th president under the original Constitution.
What?
So I've always...
But even... What? What? I love how, as it got more crazy, her talking got faster. But apparently I shouldn't be one to talk about talking fast. Somebody criticized me the other day about being too fast. I should slow down. The source for this date is the fact that 1933 was also the year when inaugurations were changed from March 4th to January 20th to shorten the lame duck period of outgoing presidents. QAnon followers believe that Trump will become the president of the original republic and not the corporation that they believe the 1871 Act created. What? While there was some crossover between QAnon and the sovereign citizen movement prior to Trump's election loss, the conspiracy theory has gained a lot of traction in recent days as QAnon followers struggle to reconcile their beliefs with Biden's inauguration. But a majority of people want Biden. So if we were talking about what the people want, then it would still be Biden because the majority want Biden. The crossover between the two groups was highlighted last November when Neely Blanchard, a QAnon supporter from Kentucky, was arrested on suspicion of killing Christopher Hallett, a Sovereign Citizen follower. Hallett was attempting to help Blanchard regain custody of her children at the time. The claims about the U.S. being a corporation have also begun to gain traction outside the main QAnon groups. Can someone tell me why I'm 22 years old and I just learned that the United States is a corporation, not a country? One TikTok user asked in a video posted over the weekend and viewed 47,000 times. Because it's not. Because you weren't listening to morons until now. In the comments, other TikTok users repeat the lie about Trump being inaugurated on March 4th. In the wake of Biden's inauguration, QAnon followers initially appeared despondent, lashing out that QAnon was a sham. But within days, and at the urging of the movement's biggest influencers, QAnon followers started to come around and begin to believe in the plan once again. Wonderful. I'm glad that they still have reasons to live. Moving on from there, COVID has made the wealth gap even worse than we thought. That's the story from Vice.com by Emma Ackerman on January 25th, 2021. Earth's top 10 billionaires watched as their collective wealth increased by $540 billion between March 18th and the end of December. It took the world's top 1,000 billionaires just 9 months to recoup their pre-pandemic fortunes after the virus ravaged the global economy, while the poorest people might not recover for more than a decade, according to a new report from Oxfam on the inequality virus. The increase in the fortunes of those at the top of the economic ladder, alongside the significant negative impacts on those at the bottom, is driving up economic inequality. Oxfam, a global anti-poverty organization, wrote in its brief, which drew from a survey of 295 economists from around the world to support that view. In fact, the pandemic could cause the biggest increase in inequality since records began, as it precipitates a simultaneous and substantial rise across many countries. I heard something. I don't know if it's going to be covered here if I didn't bother, but I heard something where it was like the top 20, the top like, actually no, that it's right at the top. I just read it right now and I'm just an idiot. The world's top 1,000 billionaires. It took the world's top 1,000 billionaires just 9 months to recoup their pre-pandemic fortunes after the virus. I wanted to repeat that. That was like, what the fuck, right? Because for the rest of us, we're fucked, right? And everybody's suffering in a major way, right? And it's assumed that everyone is suffering and the economy's taking this huge hit. But in reality, the people at the top are doing just fine even now. Like nothing's really changed for them at all. They're still weathering this no problem. So what the fuck? How the hell do we get that kind of awesomeness is what I want to know. Why does inequality like, if anything, this was supposed to be something that like leveled the playing field, but still somehow they were able to benefit from it. No matter what, if you're on the top, you will continue to benefit more and more, while the people on the bottom just suffer more and more. The increase in the fortunes of those at the top of the economic ladder, alongside the significant negative impacts on those at the bottom, is driving up economic inequality. I think I already read that. In fact, the pandemic could cause the biggest increase in inequality since records began, as it precipitates a simultaneous and substantial rise across many countries. The planet was already astoundingly unequal before the virus hit, with more than 2,000 billionaires holding more wealth than they could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, Oxfam said in its brief. But the chasm between the rich and the poor has deepened since COVID-19, burdening historically marginalized groups, including Black people, Afro-descendants, and Indigenous peoples, according to the brief, and women most of all. And nerdy little white boys like me, no, I'm supposed to have an advantage, but I'm too weird, I guess. In just the US, for example, about 10.7 million people remain unemployed in a crisis that's hit Black women and Latinas hard, according to the National Women's Law Center. American women of color also face a disproportionate rate of food insecurity and the threat of eviction and homelessness, despite residing in the richest country in the world. Ultimately, the pandemic could widen the country's racial economic gap after a year in which politicians pledged to address systemic inequities, a response to the Black Lives Matter movement. While poverty rates among white individuals are projected to increase by 4.2 percentage points due to the pandemic, I guess I'm in that little tiny group, Black individuals will face an increase of 12.6 percentage points, and Latinx, actually, I guess I'm not in that group because I was already in poverty before the pandemic. And Latinx people, one of 9.4 percentage points. And worldwide, the total number of people living in poverty might have increased by an estimated 200 million to 500 million people last year, according to Oxfam Brief, potentially reversing the decline in global poverty that's taken place over the past 2 decades. The number of people living in poverty might not return even to its pre-crisis level for over a decade, Oxfam said in its brief. And let's remember, billionaires are already back to pre-virus levels. So how does that make any kind of sense? I ask you. Unsurprisingly, the fallout has looked far different for the global elite, who fled to private islands during a public health emergency, turned to private jet services to insulate themselves while traveling, and pleaded with their physicians to give them early access to the vaccine. The world's billionaires took a hit in the first few months of the pandemic when the stock market went into meltdown, Oxfam noted it in its brief, but that was a blip. The markets rebounded dramatically, buoyed by government stimulus. Like, why? You could have not buoyed it, and they still probably would have been okay. Because then that's where all the tax money went, right? Like, all of us who are fucking suffering and are starving and miserable, we paid our taxes for the ultra rich to get more money just for nothing. Just cause gotta help the fucking economy, gotta help the stock market, because that's more important than putting food on people's tables. And that's we're gonna get to something else later, and we're gonna get into a deeper conversation about the stock market, which I think you already see where this conversation is gonna go. But I can't believe we haven't even gotten to that yet. How long is this? Is only an hour. Okay, there's more layers to this that we are going to peel back. So stay tuned. The ultra-rich benefited. Earth's top 10 billionaires watched as their collective wealth increased by $540 billion between March 18th and the end of December, an amount that could prevent anyone else from falling into poverty due to the virus while covering the COVID-19 vaccine for everyone, Oxfam wrote. The organization urges in its brief that governments need to act to create a fairer world, including by investing in free quality public services and social protection to support everyone from cradle to grave. And the governments could draw revenue by ensuring fair levels of taxation among profitable corporations and the ultra-wealthy, Oxfam said. We cannot return to the brutal, unequal, and unsustainable world that the coronavirus found us in, Oxfam said in its brief. Humanity has incredible talent, huge wealth, and infinite imagination. We must put these assets to work to create a more equal and sustainable economy that benefits all, not just the privileged few. No shit. Thank you. Moving on from there. A Yemeni family was repeatedly attacked by US drones. Now they're seeking justice. And me, I'm seeking yogurt. Alright. Yogurt in a tube. So good. You have no idea. You've never had yogurt in a tube, have you? Sorry. Where was I? My tummy was bothering me. But with this yogurt in a tube, I'm gonna have the power that I need to get through our conversation about stock markets later. Boy, will that be fun. Everyone's having conversations about stock markets this week. On like every site, like, okay, let's sit down and have a complicated discussion about something that absolutely makes no sense. A Yemeni family was repeatedly attacked by US drones, so now they're seeking justice, says Leah Fager and Nick Turse on January 26, 2021. The day was supposed to be joyous. Yes, this was a horrible, horrible story. On December 12th, 2013, the Al Amiri and Al Taisi families joined together in Yemen's Al Baida province to celebrate the marriage of Abdullah Mabkut Al Amiri and his new wife, Warda Al Taisi. During the traditional wedding procession from the bride's home, a United States drone launched 4 missiles and killed 12 people. 7 members of the Al Amiri family and 5 members of the Al Taisi family were killed. 6 more were injured. Everyone here was shocked. Ahmed Mohammed Al Shafi Al Taisi, whose 25-year-old son was killed in the strike, said later in a witness statement, "Those drones don't only fly, they kill people." Everyone here was shocked. No shit. I'd be pretty shocked too. My wedding was interrupted by explosions that killed half of my family. Over the next 5 years, this is where it gets even more fucked up. Over the next 5 years, members of the Al Amiri and Al Taisi families and their neighbors were victims of 6 more attacks. The year 2017 was particularly brutal. They say that 15 members of their family were killed on January 29th after an on the ground raid. 2 distantly related neighbors died on March 6th. One family member was killed on November 23rd. 3 died on November 26th, and 1 died on December 22nd during drone strikes. Less than a year later, on September 18th, 2020, 2 more family members were killed. Like, what the fuck? Over 7 separate attacks by the United States, 6 drone strikes, and 1 raid, 36 members of the Al Amiri and Al Taisi families were killed. 36 members. A quarter of them were children between the ages of 3 months and 14 years old. A quarter of them were children. The families lost loved ones, homes, livestock, and neighbors, as 12 other people were killed by the airstrikes as well. Though the US government authorities have claimed throughout the years that the targets were terrorists, investigators and the families have consistently said that that is untrue. While it has been 7 years since the first strike, they still haven't received any answers. Instead, they live in fear. Can you imagine if, like, a government was constantly hunting your family? You're just like a poor, shitty family in Iraq or whatever. Was it? Iraq are just horribly insult these people. Yemeni. Sorry. In Yemen. This poor family, 2 families, but they joined together because of marriage. So this poor extended family is literally being hunted by the United States government. And I shouldn't be laughing because it's horrifying. Each attack was covered in the press at the time it occurred, but the disparate reports of casualties have failed to capture the catastrophic misfortune borne by the Al Amiri and Al Taisi families. Their experience as victims of America's 2-decade-long war on terror mirrors that of their country, and is a story of unimaginable heartbreak, of repeated attacks without explanation, deaths without accountability, and trauma without recourse. It's a life with constant fear, Mohammed Ali Mabkut Al Amiri, a survivor of 4 attacks, told Vice World News. You always feel tense. If you go out in your vehicle, you're afraid. If you walk out individually, you're always afraid to leave the village because you think you might be mistaken and targeted. No shit. The families, led by Aziz Al Amiri, a family patriarch, are filing a petition on January 25th against the U.S. government through the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, an arm of the Organization of American States that observes and investigates human rights conditions throughout the Western Hemisphere. With the assistance of Reprieve, an international human rights organization that has worked with and represented drone strike victims, Al Amiri is asking for accountability. The family is searching for answers, and they've been blocked from getting any sort of answer from the U.S. government, said Jennifer Gibson, a human rights lawyer and project lead on extrajudicial killing at Reprieve. So they're now going to the Inter-American Commission, hoping to get from them the answers and the relief that they have not been able to get from the U.S. government or from the U.S. courts. The families are presenting several documents, including a 50-page dossier of evidence, and seeking precautionary measures, effectively an injunction against assassination. So they insist that they're innocent. They have documents proving that they're innocent. Investigators insisting that they're innocent. Like, and the U.S. has not shown any evidence on their side. They're just trying to shove it under the rug. But yet they keep attacking this family over and over again. Killed 35 members of this family. 30. Can you imagine feeling like you were being hunted by the U.S. government? And what would you do? There's drones in the sky. You can't get away from them. You can't fight the U.S. government. Insane. Horrifying. Moving on from there. Beijing's latest weapon in its war on COVID-19. Anal swabs. This is a story by Viola Zhu on January 27th, 2021. Think nasal swabs were unpleasant? One person who had rectal swabs said it felt like having diarrhea. This is a very important story, and I'm so glad we're covering this. Authorities in Beijing are ordering anal swabs for some people who may have contacted COVID-19 patients. Can you imagine? In its latest effort to contain local outbreaks. And by the way, this isn't just adults, as we're about to find out. Officials said last Wednesday that anal swabs had been administered for more than 1,000 students and teachers at a school in Daxing district in the Chinese capital after a 9-year-old boy tested positive for the coronavirus. Although China successfully contained the epidemic in the second half of 2020, the country is now facing new clusters linked to virus variants from overseas, which put renewed pressure on the government. Anal swabs for coronavirus testing are not new in China. Some hospitals have been testing the rectal samples or feces of confirmed patients after studies found that the coronavirus could be detected in people's digestive system for longer than in their respiratory tract. According to guidelines published by the National Health Commission, cotton swabs should be put 3 to 5 centimeters, or about 1 to 2 inches. Maybe like that far in? Inside the rectum during an anal swab. Alex Wang, 21, told Vice One News that he had 2 anal swabs at a quarantine hotel in September after he returned from Australia to his hometown Weihai in the eastern province of Shandong. Wang said 2 nurses told him to hold onto a chair. Why nurses? I don't know if that's better or worse. Wang says 2 nurses told him to hold on to his chair. I can get through this. I can get through this. Wang said 2 nurses told him to hold onto a chair and use one hand to pull his buttocks apart. This is very important. We have to get through the story. The swab lasted a few seconds. Wang said it felt like he was having diarrhea. At first I was shy, Wang said, but I understood the country was under pressure to prevent outbreaks. And sometimes you just have to take one up the butt. He didn't say that, I said that. But the report about large-scale anal swabs in Beijing has prompted a wave of panic online. I don't blame you, as people worry the unpleasant test will be rolled out to the general public. The nasal one was uncomfortable enough. I can't imagine this one, a Weibo user commented. I'm worried I will fart while being swabbed, another person said. Especially when you've got 2 nurses doing it. Like, oh man, what if you fart in their faces and they'll never look at you the same again? Li Tongzheng, a doctor at the Beijing Yuan Hospital, told state broadcaster CCTV that in some mild and asymptomatic cases, the virus could only be detected in anal samples, but not in the respiratory swabs. Li said conducting both anal and throat swabs would reduce the chances of misinfections, but since it's not convenient to do anal swabs for large numbers of people, the test is now only required for the key population, such as those under quarantine, he said. Poor people. Don't go to China for any reason. Just stay out. You'll have to go under quarantine, and when the quarantine is over, you will have to have an anal swab. I think I remember hearing something about like the UN sent, or no, the World Health Organization sent a team to China to look into the origins of the virus, and they only recently got out of quarantine. So one would assume that they had to go through these anal swabs. But anyway, going on with this article. Researchers have been studying if anal swabs could help doctors screen potential infections or identify severe cases at an early stage. A study in Weihai found the coronavirus was positive in anal swabs but negative in other sample types of several cured patients. Another study in the southern city of Guangzhou showed the detection of the virus in anal swabs was a potential warning indicator of severe disease. Researchers are still trying to confirm whether the coronavirus can transmit through feces or urine. One study about an outbreak at an apartment building in Guangzhou suggests that the virus might have spread through the wastewater system because they were drinking it. I don't understand, but okay. Moving on. Can the rich and famous actually jump the line for a COVID vaccine? This is a story by Drew Schwartz for Vice.com on January 27th, 2021. Yes. Moving on. Elder Scrolls 6 won't be released until 2026, according to Insider. This is an article from ScreenRant.com by Dmitry Lapunov, and this was 2 days ago. Who knows when that was? Could have been forever. It appears that the immensely anticipated Elder Scrolls 6 won't come out until 2026, according to one industry insider. It's rather understandable considering that there's little to no information regarding the game, although Bethesda might have recently hinted at the possible setting of the upcoming sequel. On New Year's Eve, almost a month ago, Bethesda published a festive post on Twitter. It included an image of Skyrim's map, but most importantly, it also highlighted another Tamriel province, Hammerfell, which could have easily gone unnoticed as the inscription was made with a faded font. To spice things up, Bethesda accompanied the image with a meaningful phrase, transcribe the past and map the future. Considering that there are 2 provinces featured, the tweet literally shows the past and the future of the Elder Scrolls series, revealing that the next game will potentially take place in Hammerfall. Last week, well-known insider Tyler McVicker took it to Twitter to share his opinions on when to expect any of the upcoming big single-player RPGs from Bethesda. According to him, the fan community shouldn't expect the Elder Scrolls 6 to release earlier than 2026, which leaves players with 5 years of painful waiting. The closest massive-scale project by the studio is expected to be Starfield, which itself requires a year or 2 to get finalized. After that, the Elder Scrolls 6 should be the focus, and speaking of any possible Fallout sequels, McVicker claimed that the continuation of the post-apocalyptic franchise would likely release in the 2030s. On a slightly more positive note, Fallout New Vegas might come out in the second half of the 2020s. Okay, fair enough. That is slightly more positive. Like, what? Poor people who won't live to see the next Fallout game. People who love Fallout, who probably played Fallout 1 as a child, and it will die of old age before they ever get to chance to play Fallout 6. That's probably not true, but it's awful. It's awful. It's horrible. Kind of sad. Moving on. Man, but you know what? Bethesda is tired of releasing buggy games, and they would rather take the time to release a game that's not buggy than do it. If that's what it takes to make these games amazing, because I mean, the games are already usually pretty good. If that's what it takes, then do it. Better that than what CD Projekt Red did. Am I right? Just saying. Moving on from there, experts say Robinhood's GameStop fiasco likely caused by lack of cash. This is where we get to talk about the fun stuff. So basically, you guys might have heard about the GameStop fiasco that's going on in the stock market right now. It's kind of everywhere, and it's led to almost every news thing I follow doing deep dives into the stock market and how it works. None of it makes a whole lot of sense. Even people trying to explain it are like, first thing you gotta know about the stock market is that it doesn't make sense. That it's a whole bunch of bullshit. Everything that Wall Street tells us about the markets is bullshit, and it's all just gambling, basically. And I think it's what I hate about it is that it's a sign of how the economy is doing, but it has absolutely zero influence on whether or not, say, poor people have food on their tables. It's not an indicator of that at all. It's just whether or not the rich people are getting richer. It is what it tells you. But things went out of control when Reddit decided to take advantage and play around with the stock market. Basically, when you buy a stock, the stock market goes up for that stock. And so, based on what I understand, they decided to tell everyone, hey, let's all buy this stock, make it go super high, and then we can all sell it and we'll be super rich. Um, and so they chose specific stocks that were doing particularly bad by companies that were suffering um, in the real world. And let's just read this. After a day of being raked over the coals by lawmakers and users, the stock trading app Robinhood put out a vague statement Thursday, attempting to explain why it stopped allowing its users to buy GameStop, AMC, Nokia, and other meme stocks that were skyrocketing in price. Is this going to explain it better? So basically, what Robinhood did was, I'll just keep reading. A dominant theory among some investors was that Robinhood stopped allowing people to buy GameStop stock in order to benefit firms such as Citadel, a company that pays Robinhood for information about its users' trades. So basically, after this happened for a while, and they inflated a whole bunch of stocks for GameStop, AMC, apparently Nokia as well. People made a whole bunch of money, and it cost rich people a whole bunch of money. And so everyone's like complaining, what the hell, rah, 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 rah. And so Robinhood put a block on me able to buy certain shares of certain stocks, and apparently they're calling that anti capitalism. So they're saying that it was to benefit a company that pays Robinhood and recently helped bail out a company called Melvin Capital from the short sale positions it had taken on GameStop. Regulatory experts, however, say that this doesn't seem to be the reason. As they see it, the likeliest explanation for Robinhood defenestrating itself by breaking trust with its user base are less nefarious but perhaps more embarrassing, and suggests that the stock trading platform may not have had enough cash on hand to stay within regulatory rules for brokerage firms. In other words, experts tell Motherboard that a mass influx of people buying tons of GameStop stock likely created a cash flow issue or the threat of a cash flow issue, and that could have put Robinhood out of compliance with very basic regulatory rules that every brokerage is required to follow. So everybody thought that Robinhood was being super corrupt. And the reality is Robinhood might have just ran out of money. Is what this is saying, and that it may be much less of a conspiracy than people are making it out to be, which is interesting. And that's just one aspect of this larger issue, which is the fact that stocks are bullshit, in my opinion. Um, and all this article seems to focus on the Robinhood of it all, which I thought this was an interesting aspect of the story that wasn't being picked up by other media outlets. So you've probably heard the story elsewhere and maybe had it explained to you already. But you probably didn't hear this aspect of it, or certainly this explanation for why Robinhood did what it did. Anyway, yeah, it's still talking about Robinhood. But I want to talk about the stocks because they're saying that GameStop might actually be saved from this, and that AMC might actually be saved from this. These are businesses that were going bankrupt, that were out of money, that were like in huge debt, and in my opinion, should be going bankrupt and should be going out of like if you're going out of business, you should be going out of business. Why is it that huge? When you're big enough, you get to survive everything and somehow benefit even when you lose. I don't understand it. But small businesses and things like that get screwed time and time again, and don't have these sort of protections. But apparently, somehow, if your stock goes up high enough, it doesn't matter that you aren't making profit. Like I could be buying Ferraris for $5 million and then selling them each for $10 a pop, and thus be like losing out millions of dollars every time I sell these cars. But then I could have great stocks and apparently I'd be okay, is what this is trying to tell me. I don't get it. I don't understand how the stock market, which is this magical, made up bullshit fantasy, they're betting on nothing, and then just they're betting on the number of bets, basically, and then the one with the most bets, those people then sell and then make money. It's just bullshit. It's bullshit, inflating bullshit, rich people finding ways to get richer while the poor get poorer. And I hate it. I hate it. And I don't like it. And I don't think it's cool. And I feel like I'm doing a bad job of explaining my position. Keep in mind, I'm tired. I didn't get much sleep last night. Um, Maybe if I had been talking last night, I might have been able to explain myself better, but and not come across as just an idiot who doesn't understand how stocks work. Um, but I swear I've listened and I've tried to understand, and I think I understand, and it's still bullshit. It's still just bullshit. And it shouldn't be a thing that exists, and it shouldn't have the strength that it does to the point where like a government can fuck over its people and destroy the minimum wage, and its people could be starving to death. But the stock market's doing well. And then all the voters will be like, yeah, good job. And they'll vote them in again because the stock market's doing well. And that's all that matters. And it's like the stock market is clearly not a good sense of the economy, because the economy should be based around whether or not every single person is able to live a comfortable life. Otherwise, it's failing. Otherwise, the economy is failing when there's 1,000 people who have more money they can spend in 1,000 lifetimes, and then everyone else is living in dirt. Then something's wrong and something needs to change. Like, this is bullshit. Moving on from there, Xbox Series X and S stock shortage problems aren't going away very soon. This is the last story of the week. I remember hearing something where there's like some kind of someone did an announcement where they were like, "Don't worry, I can't remember if it was Xbox or PlayStation, but they're like, don't worry, there's gonna be more stock in stores before the end of the year." It's like I would fucking hope so. Like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck are we talking about here? What the hell is going on that we're still having issues with these consoles? Well, we're about to find out. This is a story on Screen Rant by Kyle Wheelock 2 days ago. To the dismay of prospective Xbox Series X and S owners, Microsoft revealed that the console's stock shortages are not going away anytime soon. The news came in a quarterly earnings call yesterday evening, and while not entirely surprising to hear, it's still surely disheartening for those still trying to get their footing in the current gen door. Both Sony's PlayStation 5 and Microsoft's Xbox Series X and S have been in short supply since their launches in November due to different factors ranging from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic disrupting manufacturing chains to relentless scalpers buying up all available stock at retailers around the world. Many players who still have not found a console were holding out hope that the new year would bring new inventory, but it looks like that may not be the case for many Xbox customers. Yesterday evening, during an earnings call transcribed by Seeking Alpha, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella told investors that Xbox Series X and S supplies will continue to be limited for the foreseeable future. After speaking on Microsoft PC Ventures, Nadella said, "In gaming, we expect continued strong engagement on the Xbox platform and significant demand for the Xbox Series X and S that will still be constrained by supply." Neither Nadella nor the other Microsoft executives on the call gave an approximation as to when the console would be more readily available. Between this news and the backlash Microsoft received for attempting to raise Xbox Live Gold prices, one might think the company is experiencing something of a slump. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. In the same call, Nadella has revealed that Xbox Game Pass now has 18 million subscribers and that the Xbox Series X and S launch was the biggest Microsoft console launch of all time. While COVID-19 and high demand have combined to cause problems for Xbox players, it appears that Xbox itself is having a great time. Microsoft has been open about shifting its approach with Xbox, aiming to get more people into its Game Pass ecosystem by any means necessary, whether that be via console, PC, or mobile. That means that while the gaming giant shortage issues aren't likely ideal for the tech company, it's nowhere near devastating for its earnings potential. Of course, this is not suggesting that Microsoft does not care about the Xbox Series XS at all, because it does. So the factors that have contributed to the console shortages are ones that are out of Microsoft's control, so there really is not much the company can do about the Xbox Series XS. I believe I read somewhere that it's AMD that's coming out saying that it's their fault. I read an article where AMD said that they're having issues with the Ryzen 5000 chip or something like that, and that's the chip that's used both in the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And so it's because they're having manufacturing difficulties that both of those consoles are also having manufacturing difficulties. So thanks, AMD. moving on there to the Geekly blog. And to the third act of this three-act podcast, third act being reality. It goes entertainment, news, and reality. So now we're at the reality part of the world. As you can tell, I've changed the order of things. Geekly Weekly, now it's a triangle, a three-act show, starting with entertainment, then moving on to news, and finishing with personal. I've gotten, so not reality, personal. We're into the personal act. I've got another week. I've got another week without smoking. You can applaud now. Every week is a surprise, as I feel like keep placing my toe on the line, ready to cave and give up at a moment's notice. I'm pretty sure my writing has taken a hit, and I've been super depressed and unmotivated and unproductive. In fact, the last 3 days, I've set alarms for 8 a.m. only to sleep through them and wake up at noon. Not today, though. Today, I didn't sleep through my 8 a.m. alarm. I kind of shut it off and lay there and was super tired for an hour, and then my 9 o'clock alarm went off. I was like, fine, I'll go do other things. And came out here, and now I'm making this podcast. And yeah, anyway, weirdly, the only thing that's getting me through this struggle to not smoke is iCarly. I've traded one addiction for another addiction. I've also watched about 8 episodes of Adventure Time. It's fine, if incredibly random. I'm sad that I haven't gotten Marceline yet. And the show really doesn't do a good job of explaining itself. I think I pointed out before when I was talking about iCarly in the beginning of the show that the pilot for iCarly does a great job of setting everything up and explaining everything. And I got the show after the pilot. I watched Adventure Time and it did none of those things. And if it wasn't for me going down the crazy rabbit hole and already obsessing about the show before watching it, I would have had literally no idea what the fuck was going on. I probably would have given up on the show, which I did because I didn't watch it for like decades. A decade. But anyway, moving on from there to the Geekly Weekly comments, questions, and stats. For some weird reason, Patreon is reporting that last weekend I had like nearly 1,000 hits one day, then 1,200 the next day, then it dropped to 100 the next day, and now it's about back to normal. You can take a look at that if you want. Should be very interesting to see. You can see here how this is the normal. We've got like 23 hits and less than that, 14. Can't even touch it, but it's like 3 or something. It just keeps going like that. And it's 15, 25, and then suddenly 871? What? 1,279? What? And then that drops down to 137, and then 108, and then 40, and then 38, 36. It's kind of stabilizing. But yeah, so that's kind of sad. I don't know what caused that huge spike like that, but I didn't see any other like if you look here, you don't see hundreds of people checking out my content, do you? Like, so what's up with that? And like if you go to my podcast, I didn't see a big spike in my podcast numbers. I didn't see any numbers from my Amazon. If there was really 2.5 thousand views in the past week, surely if those were like unique people coming and being like, what's this? Surely at least one of them would have checked out my stuff on Amazon, right? At least one of them would have looked it up, looked at my name, been like, oh, look at all this stuff on Amazon, out of thousands of people. So the fact that none of them did leads me to believe that this has got to be some kind of fluke. Maybe the stats accidentally picked up something that didn't actually happen, or like a robot. Maybe it was a robot that was logging my site over and over again. I don't know what it was, but there was some sort of fluke that caused me to get something like 2,000 hits this week. And I wish it was real because it would have been nice to have an audience like that with thousands of people instead of an audience of 5 or whatever it is, 3, 4, 7, 19. I did get a new Patreon subscriber though, and weirdly enough, that spike happened right after the Patreon subscriber, which maybe, and in fact, all the traffic sources claim to be Patreon related. So it makes you wonder if maybe getting a new subscriber put me on some kind of list or something. Like maybe if you go to the Patreon.com homepage, there's a list of Patreons that just got new subscribers, and I got on that list. And so these are just random people being like, "Why did he subscribe? This is a piece of shit." Moving on. Welcome to the piece of shit. Tastes pretty good for shit, doesn't it? That's the line from Star Trek Discovery. So yeah, and I've got 2 subscribers. I've got 2 fans of Twitter, 2 fans on Twitter, who keep up with me, one of whom subscribes here. And then I have 2 subscribers here, one of whom is vocal, and the other one is just kind of quiet. All my other numbers are just, and stats are just business as usual. And this has been the end of the 99% Geek. I hope you like the new sort of format I have going here. I guess I can repeat the Geekly predictions again. Those were the little things on Friday on HBO Max, The Dig Friday, Netflix, and Control Ultimate Edition Tuesday on PS5 and Series X. But it's also on everything else, and it's going to be free if you have PlayStation Plus. So check it out because it's supposed to be good, I guess. Anyway, my name is Andrew Geczy. My brand is 99% Geek, found at 99geek.ca. I'm a writer writing monthly chapters of novels like episodes of TV shows, releasing them in 4 weekly parts, a teaser and 3 acts on Sundays on my Patreon page at patreon.com/99geek. At the end of the month, the finished chapter is added to the PDFs attached at the bottom of every post. Finally, the finished books are self-published on Amazon. There's urban fantasy tales about a teenage girl turned into a vampire against her will, or a scorned lover investigating paranormal phenomena, or a journalist covering news and politics in the Middle East. There's a sci-fi story about people on a dying world trying to build a ship to a new one. There's a fantasy story about a fallen angel trying to stop the end of the world, and there's more coming. And it's all attached to the bottom of every post in the site in convenient PDF format, readable on computers, tablets, ebook readers, and phones. I also have a Geekly Weekly blog and host video game playthroughs and matchmaking streams on Twitch, and eventually post them on my YouTube and Patreon pages. So stay tuned and maybe subscribe. It's only $1, and the support you show will go a very long way, I promise. There are also higher tiers. Give $5 one month and you can name a character or location or suggest a thing you might want to see. Basically, you get to give a noun and then I promise to incorporate that noun into one of my stories somehow. Maybe not the same month you give the suggestion, but within 1 cycle of books guaranteed. No matter how crazy, you can't sabotage me, I promise. You can keep giving nouns for every month you pay at the $5 tier. Or if you give $10, you don't get 2 nouns, but you can give a description, describe the personality of your character or the look of the location, or the importance of your item. For $10, you get a noun and a description. You can also give $1 towards supporting my efforts at video game streaming or my weekly blog, which is this. So if you like this and you want to support this, you can go and give $1 to support this. And then every dollar you give towards this, well, I will put that towards making this better. And then we'll get to talk all you want about anal swabs all day and all night. Just all anal swabs all the time. And for a limited time, you can go to paypal.me/99geek, and for a limited time, the same rules apply about suggesting a noun. When you give money there, you can just write it below your contribution, and I will include it in my book somewhere. I'm as poor as it gets, living paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes starving, so I understand if you are too. I don't want to take food out of your mouth, so your attention is enough. Say something, comment here, or at the very least, follow me on Twitter at Andrew Geczy, or Instagram at WingcommanderIV, or email me at aldon@gmail.com. Live long and prosper. May the force be with you. Long live Marceline the Vampire Queen. We are the 99% Geek. Button.